Okay, so you may have heard of a viral video by a YouTuber called Sam Pepper, I believe his name is. And basically it's a prank about getting this guy to believe his best friend has been killed. Um, Went viral, but I'm pleased to say that the vast majority of people have thumbed it down. So basically, in this prank, two young guys are in a car, guessing, I don't know, late teens, early 20s. They're in a car and sort of driving along, I think it's in Los Angeles, and suddenly they have some technical problems, and as they're looking at the bonnet, um, these guys in masks kind of kidnap them. But the whole thing's a prank. One of the kidnappers is this guy Sam Pepper, and his friend, who's also called, yeah. There's two Sams actually. The victim is called Sam, and the prankster is also called Sam. Just, you know, that caused me a little bit of confusion at first, but anyway, the best friend is kind of taken away, and the best friend is in on it. So-called best friend is in on it, and basically they end up in this like remote area overlooking the city, and they're tied up and all, and one guy has got a balaclava over his head, like he's a hostage. Um, and the gunman or the terrorist or the kidnapper, whatever he's supposed to be, um, I don't know if it's like a blank gun or something, but it gives the impression that he's being shot. The guy falls down. The friend, the blonde guy, is absolutely hysterical. Obviously, he's just watched his friend be killed, so he thinks. And he's crying, he's hysterical. In the end, they own up and say, "Oh, it was all a prank." And his friend goes up to him and says, "Look, I'm really here." Personally, if I were that guy, I would dump that so-called friend in a heartbeat. Any friend that puts you through that is not a friend. So if I were that guy, I would absolutely discard that guy in a heartbeat. Secondly, especially in light of recent events, um, I think that any sort of stunt that goes to the point of putting people in sheer terror, thinking that someone close to them has been brutally killed, those sort of psychological games can really, really, really mess someone up. Um, and as far as I'm concerned, only fellow losers think this is funny. And Sam Pepper, what an absolute joke. Not a joker, but a joke. Um, I am talking about him in this video, but I want to use it as a sort of scope for other so-called pranksters online. Personally, I think these guys are little worms who need to get their kicks, and it is mostly guys. So I'm not being sexist in the language. It is mostly guys I've seen. And if there's women who are doing it, I apply exactly the same logic to them. But it's mostly guys I've seen, and they're just little worms. Any joke that goes to the point of messing with someone's emotions to that extent is not a joke. It's just not. It's just a sick stunt. And you'd have to be a pretty twisted person to find it funny. Now, to be clear here, I'm not square when it comes to humor. I can take risky humor. I can take dark humor. I really can. I've got time for satire. I've got time for a lot of things. So I'm not talking about, I'm not saying we should all just have slapstick humor and, really, really tame humor. I'm not saying that. But I do think there is a red line. And when it gets to the point where you're fucking with people's emotions in that way, then you're no longer a comedian, but you're a piece of shit. You're just a bully and a card. And I hope he loses all his subscriptions, and I hope he can no longer upload videos. I am pleased to see some faith in humanity, though, because the vast majority of comments were negative, and there's far more dislikes than likes. Now that says to me that there's a lot of decent people out there who can tell right from wrong. And I've seen no reason to believe that the victim was in on this because he really did look hysterical and he was saying I thought you really did man and all this sort of stuff. If he was in on it, if we're all being duped, then he actually was in on it as well. I still make the same message. It's a completely pointless joke. It just lends nothing whatsoever to comedy value. It's just sick for the sake of being sick. I mean, what next? Sexually molest girls and say it's type of humor? You know, where do you draw a line with this? Um, it really pisses me off to think that there are people who basically get millions of subscribers over rubbish. And this is not a case of jealousy because there's people who have millions of subscribers who fully deserve it. I'm talking about, I just don't understand why people like this will get so much support. Well, on this occasion, it looks like it has backfired, and I'm pleased to see that. But it's not the only example. There are other things. There are other pranksters out there who take it too far. But I take the view that if your humor is based on humiliating another person, then it's a cowardly form of humor. If it's inclusive humor, or if it's kind of maybe, I'm not saying there's, pranks within reason have their place. I mean, I've done pranks where I've kind of waited behind the door and jumped out at someone, made sure the person didn't have a heart condition, and they've done it to me, and we've found the funny side in that. But there are limits, there really are limits, and that's not about being square. It's about being a decent human being and recognizing that there are some things you just don't do if you're a decent human being. And having this very realistic setup where, a guy is kidnapped, he thinks his best friend is killed. I really hope he dumps that so-called friend of his. If any of my friends done that, I'd tell them where to go. But yeah, it's. I looked at the sort of discussion box, this guy's inbox, Sam Pepper's inbox, and yeah, there is pretty much universal language speaking out against him. So clearly, I'm not the only one who feels this way. There's some controversy that YouTube's refused to remove it. But I think in light of the fact that, the world's been seeing this has been a pretty dramatic year for terrorism, I just think it's totally out of place. And it's, what a loser. That's my sentiments about this guy. What a complete and utter loser. And I do think that a lot of these pranksters, they're not really doing it for comedy. They're doing it to mask their own insecurity. And they're basically glorified bullies. That's what they are. They're bullies masquerading as pranksters. And like all bullies, they're cowards. That's it. All I would say is, I can't guarantee I would keep my calm in such a situation. If I found out I'd been pranked in that way, if I could compose myself, I think I'd be throwing fists, to be quite honest. So let me know what you think. Do you think that humor's all very well, or do you think there should be limits? I believe there should be limits. I believe that when humor is cruel and when it's used to mess with someone's emotions in that way, it ceases to be funny and it just becomes a cruel, sick stunt. And, you know, this guy better watch his back because one day one of his victims is going to turn around and, lay him flat. And I have no sympathy.